In this video, I'm going to go over how to paint faces using 3D as a base, and I painted over my Blender render. It rhymes. So first, I start with the eyebrows and mainly the face, and just try to make it look less 3D. The cool thing about painting in 2D is that you could kind of make your own designs and kind of ignore the lighting that's already predetermined by 3D. 3D could be really accurate sometimes, and sometimes you want a little bit kind of different lighting that doesn't exist. I actually recorded audio as I was painting this, but it ended up saving, so I have to audio over it, so my initial thoughts while painting might not be there. It took roughly, it would take 30 minutes to paint this. So it was going to be a 30-minute video, but now I shortened it down to a 10-minute video. So here I started painting in some lighting from the blade, but it ended up being kind of strong. So eventually, I'm going to later erase that, but that's where I was going in this part too. I added a little bit of lighting that what I wanted, but it didn't come out in the render. And when I zoom out right here, I can see how strong that light was that I painted, so I erased it. Here I started painting some highlights for the hair. It's kind of like inspired by a lot of those like anime hair shapes, but you could even see it a little bit in the render right there as I'm painting it. It's usually on the arcs of the hair. So anytime there's an arc, I would paint it. And now this is a good time to start adding in some like contrast, because it's right in front of the like sun looking thing. So I'm just adding in that contrast to like show detail. It's a good place to do that. Erasing a little bit more of the highlight that I added earlier, and then adding in more of the hair highlights. Now I'm just darkening that area. And then I think the eyes were like looking a little like dead. So I wanted to brighten it up a little bit. So now I'm going to start making a new layer and painting a post effect layer, like a bloom layer, using color dodge as the main blending layer. So this is just going to give me like a rough estimate of like what the painting is going to look like in the end. I put the rim light to be a little bit blue, a bloom kind of lighting that's bluer, just to contrast all the warm colors. Now here I'm starting to add in more like kind of like accent colors. So I started with some green just to see how it looks like. Now I'm adding in some red next to blue, so that pushes out that area a little bit more. It just makes it a little more interesting to add like sort of like variations of color. And here I'm like bleeding a little bit of the highlights throughout. I'm just testing it out just to see if it works or not. A lot of times it doesn't work, so you can always just erase it. It's cool to just add like random shapes just to make it look interesting, more designed versus realistic, of course, but it's still more appealing, I would say. But it definitely breaks the realism a little bit, which is also nice because it's a little bit more fluid in a way. It's looser. It's not as stiff as a 3D render. Here I'm just trying to add more kind of like a design towards the bottom of the hair. I was struggling a little bit zoomed in because right here, the hair originally it was designed very evenly, so I'm trying to figure out like a nice design for it. Adding in a little highlight on top of the lip, which is usually there. And here I'm going to attempt to make this hair glow, which will end up in failure. It was based off a character I had before. However, it was too contrasty. I couldn't make it work. I think it was because the face was too dark. I needed to maybe with lighten his face more. I think it could have been done if I took a lot more time, but I wanted to do this video in under like 30 minutes, which was what happened. But when I recorded it the first time, I didn't record audio, so I have to do it after the fact, so I sped it up. So here I'm adding in some like typical kind of like sci-fi tech lines. This is like a character I painted before, so I'm just trying to go for the same design. It was more to show like how to paint over a 3D face more than anything else. So with a decent enough rendering, you don't need to do a ton of painting. You just need to add in some cool, kind of like fix the eyes a little bit to make it look the way you like it. Add in some extra highlights that might be exaggerated, that are not there. It's a good time to like mess around with proportions too, if you wanted to like shrink the nose. And gave her like a little cut on her eyebrow, just because it looks cool. So yeah, whatever designs you want to add in this, like if you wanted to, you could even add like she have braided hair, like part of being braided. Now I'm just adding in more kind of like color shapes, just to make it not look so 3D in certain areas. Here I am adding in some highlight from the sword, so it's like a pink highlight that's casting through. And since it's contrasting against all the dark hair and shadow, it's like a point of interest where your eye will automatically look at, since it's like highest contrast. So be aware of that. It's just like a random painting tip. And then once again, on the top of the arcs of the hair, I would paint in a highlight, just because that's usually where her hair, like the highlights, sit. So just painting in more, kind of like more details, and some rim light on not rim light, but like some thickness light on the hood. Just painting in some more random colors. They're not really random, they're like designed there, but it might come off as random. Painting in some effects. I have another tutorial about effects, like a tutorial video if you want to check it out, but it's the same process, except this one's like a lot smaller in scale, so I'm not spending a ton of time on the details. And now I'm going to start painting in the background. There's a new technique that I wanted to try out. I did not record it just because I wasn't sure it was going to work. I did ended up using it, but now I'm going to add some dust particles near the rim light behind her. So it's a little harsh at first, but I'm going to erase most of it. And then like transform a few of them around. So just so that it's like an extra detail, just because it looks a little bit more interesting with it. And now I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to start painting in just like more flowy VFX elements. So just masking it out with the marquee lasso tool, and then keeping the same color scheme, pink, warping it just to make it look less artificial, duplicating some, scaling some down. And then there's some that are kind of evenly placed, so I'm going to start like moving around the placement of these guys really soon. So that one's like too close to like its neighbors. I'm moving it around. That one's a little bit weirdly placed, so put down closer, just so that it's not all like evenly spaced. There's kind of like a relationship, like closely spaced, spaced further away. Here I am just adding in some bloom, and now I'm adding in the highlights, just for more visual interest going on. And some accent colors. And this is where I stopped the video, but the rest of the final will be at the very end when it transitions out. But thanks for watching. See ya.